Fiber friends, welcome to the Felicity Yarn Studio channel. If you're new here, my name is Zoe and this is where I like to share my making within the fiber arts, what I've been working on recently. So for me that is mainly knitting, spinning, crochet, and yarn dyeing. So if you want to find me on social media or check out the Etsy shop, I will leave links and everything in the description box down below. And I'll try to also include timestamps, so if there's something specific that you're looking for or you want to skip a section, I'll try to make that as easy as possible for you guys. So it has been a while since I recorded, but that's okay. I'm kind of enjoying doing like a once a month schedule. It's just what's working for me, so that is that. If today's episode was going to be an episode of Sesame Street, it would be brought to you by the letter S, because we have spinning, socks, squares, and finally I'll be telling you about my latest test knit, which is called the Seaglass tee. So I guess I'll go ahead and dive right in since this is what is in my hands, and I will share with you guys this latest test knit. So again, this is the Seaglass tee. This is a design by Wool & Pine. Shocker, they seem to be the only ones that I test knit for here lately. But that is Selena and Abby, and they are a design duo and they're always coming up with these gorgeous ideas. So this is a design that they created based off of some images of sea glass that washes up on the shore, which they're on the West Coast, and I think there's a completely different like coastline and the way that sea debris washes up, because on the East Coast we don't get a ton of sea glass. Like whenever I find one, I might find one or two pieces from walking the beach the whole day, so they're really like treasure to me. I love finding sea glass. I love beach combing, period. So when I saw some swatches of this floating around their Instagram accounts, I was like, yeah, I need to get in on that. So how this is created, it is all over 1x1 color work, and for each row you're changing both strands of yarn. So that is how you're getting this really, really beautiful play of colors that are like shifting and melting and always kind of offsetting each other, or at least they're supposed to be offsetting each other. I did get kind of off in a few places, and that's where like some of the color work looks like it's lining up, the like darks on top of the darks instead of offsetting each other. But it's totally okay. I really don't care. I think it looks beautiful regardless. I don't think from far away you're really going to be able to be like, oh, you did 4 rows of dark colors in a row there. But yeah, this is a blast to knit on. I'm using the advent calendar that I dyed up for the shop last year, which was the Impressionist themed colorways. And I'm using about probably most of those colors, like 18 to 20 of those colors out of the 24. I am using the full-size skein that came with that, which was the Monet Water Lilies colorway, which was based off of one of his very many water lily paintings, but that's what I used for the cuff here, or the hem. Collar's what's up top. So yeah, and then I'm just kind of randomly pairing things together. I have I started off with 1 project bag full of yarn, but now I've got 2 because I pulled a few more full-size skeins that I wanted to just get out of my stash, and I'll use the leftovers in my blanket. I pulled a few things from my blanket, my scrappy blanket that I'm working on, to kind of play within these color palettes. And so I'm kind of just doing a system where I work through a good like 80% of the yarns that I have pulled, and I'll like leave them on the couch on the side, so I'm not really repeating anything. And then once I've kind of hit a dead end, I'll start working back from that pile and start putting them back in the bag. So it's not really a super like travel friendly project necessarily, but that's okay. It's my couch project right now and I really like that. So one thing that I do want to talk about is they do write the pattern to where you're supposed to use magic knots to join your yarn every round, to avoid weaving in ends at the end, because that would be a mammoth amount of ends to weave in. So here are my thoughts and experiences. Magic knot is not my favorite method of joining yarns. I just don't trust the knot. It has popped on me a few times in the future in other projects. I find other methods to be more secure. The Russian join is my join preference. I know that they experimented with a few other joins, but they really wanted to try to make this reversible as well. So with the magic knot, you can kind of like pop them front and back on the fabric. But anyway, my thought process going into this was I will do the magic knots as suggested. I'll see where this takes me. Now I'm basically using 80% MCN, so that's merino, cashmere, nylon blends in this. That's what the advent calendars that I dyed up last year were. There's like 2 or 3 of the full-size skeins that are just plain sock yarn, but they're all the high twist yarn base. You can use whatever bases that you have on hand. They don't all have to be the same necessarily. It's supposed to be kind of scrappy, but that's just what I went with. Anyway, that was a minor tangent there to say I did the magic knots and I was probably a good like 3 or 4 inches into the yoke when I realized that 1 or 2 of my knots had already popped. And I think it was 2 things. I wasn't really pulling them as tight as I could when I was making the magic knots, and then it's MCN, so it's just that little bit more slippery than like a merino would be, or even just a non-superwash would be probably perfectly fine with a magic knot. But I think superwash and nylon, and then you add in the cashmere element as well, I think it's just a little bit too slippery to hold up to the magic knot, especially on a garment. So about the time that this was happening for me, one of the other test knitters, who I can't remember her first name, but she is Prolific Knitter on Instagram, and I'll leave a link of course to her as well. She mentioned that she uses a type of like fabric glue. It's called Fray. I'm totally blanking on the name right now. I'll pop it on the screen and I'll leave the Amazon link that I use for that as well. But it's just a little glue that you can dab onto the ends of the knots. You can use it for regular clothes also. If you've got like a seam that's fraying, you just dab a little glue on there and hopefully it's supposed to keep those ends from fraying. So I bought some and I started applying it and like trimming up the ends. The glue can leave a little bit of like a rough feeling on the knot there. So my thought was, let me go ahead and finish the yoke doing all of the magic knots. And I've gone through and I've glued and trimmed about half of the ones that I've done so far. And then I wanted to get to the sleeve separation and try the Russian join, because then your beginning of round is under your sleeve. And I was like, well, that's kind of an inconspicuous place that I can experiment with my preferred join. I wanted to stick to their recommendations because it is a test knit, and I want to try to be as thorough as possible, you know, trying to give good feedback. But I also want a garment that I'm happy with in the end, because I really, really love this, but it's a lot of work. And anyway, apologies, my neighbors distracted me there. So yes, I wanted to try to stay true to the spirit of the pattern as written to give the best feedback as possible. But I did start doing the Russian join under the arm here and where the beginning round gets moved to. And I'm just way happier with how this is turning out. There's still a few little ends that you kind of have to trim up and clean up. But other than that, I think it's just a way more secure join. I'm not really getting bulkiness where the Russian join like folds over on itself. I have made a little tutorial video about how I do the Russian join. You can find a link to that somewhere. But it's nice to know that just in case the Russian join isn't working out for me, I can always just go back with a little bit of that Fray block maybe is the name of it. So I suppose my final thoughts on this is I kind of wish I was just doing this as a regular knit and not as a test knit. Number one, so that I would feel a little bit better about making the modifications that I would want to make for this. I don't foresee this being a problem while I wear it, but also to me, part of the fun is sitting there and picking out which colors you want for each row. And I think I spend just as much time like pairing yarns together as I do actually knitting this thing. So there is an element of feeling rushed, just slightly, because there is a deadline, and it's something that I would really enjoy knitting, you know, just at my own pace, with a whole different palette or scraps of yarn. There's some that are way more contrasty and like have used more like solids and tonals, where I've used a lot of variegated and speckled yarn to really get this kind of like melting effect of colors. But I have about a week before this pattern comes out, and I need to get the body done, and it is thankfully short sleeves, so I might just do a couple of rows for the sleeves before I put the hem on there, or cuff goes on the sleeves, collar, cuff, hem. Pattern drops May 27th, I believe. It is currently on pre-order through either their Ravelry page, or they do have their own website if you're unable to use Ravelry, and it is on sale 15% off as a pre-order. So yeah, Woolen Pine Seaglass tee. I have gotten a few questions about my advent calendars this year, and I have ordered all the yarn for them. I am just trying to decide what I'm gonna do, like theme wise, and I just need to get them listed. I usually list them at the beginning of June, so I am feeling a little bit behind in that department, but they will be out shortly. I'll make sure to put it out here on the channel and on Instagram if anybody is waiting for those. I think up next I am going to share the socks that I've been working on. I have two finished pairs actually. This is the first pair that I'll pop on here since they're on the blockers. This is just a pair of vanilla socks that I did 2 at a time toe up for myself. So a 72 stitch sock, and this was about like 60 grams of yarn, I want to say, that I had. It's mystery yarn. I don't really know where it came from. It's just kind of been floating around all of my like leftover bins and been getting used here and there as far as like some scrappy things. Kind of on a mission to really clear out my sock bin and work through what I have. But anyway, yeah, these are pretty boring, but they are something that I was just working on. And since I only had so much yarn, I was actually working from both ends of the ball at the same time. Somehow I managed not to get myself up into a tangled mess. And then I just did afterthought heels on them because they're just the simplest to knit. There's not much to think about. So these are going to go into my sock drawer. So second pair of socks. Most of you are probably already familiar with the fact that my sister is Naomi. She's the yarn curator here on YouTube as well. And she is not a sock knitter. I'm trying my hardest to convert her, and she's getting there bit by bit. But anyway, she has been nagging me for another pair of hand knit socks. So yes, I took it into my older sisterly heart and I knit her up some shorty socks. These don't quite want to fit on my sock blockers because she has smaller feet than I do. I think I did a 68 stitch sock for her. I did them 2 at a time, toe up. Yes. Not that it really matters since they're done now. Anyway, these are all little leftovers and bits and bobs that I have had from various projects. The main color was a skein actually that Naomi gave me many moons ago, and I used in my Saturate shawl. And this color, this dark purple, was also in that pattern. Everything else are just kind of little scrappy bits. I think some of the dark purples were from the 2019 advent calendar that I dyed up. I did have to stripe in those various colors just to make sure I was going to have enough yarn, and it was close. I was down to like 10 inches of yarn of that main color when I was done, which means that there are an above average amount of ends to weave in on these. So I know that I've woven in all the ends on one of the socks, but I think I'm gonna be a little bit of a meanie and send down one sock where she has to at least weave in her own ends. I think knitting the entire socks is enough. It earns me reprieve from weaving in the ends. So sorry, Nay. Sorry if you wanted to be surprised as well. So these will be going down to Naomi with a little bit of a care package. She sent me, sent me something not yarn related, but it came with 2 boxes of tea, which were, and finally, I do have one more pair of socks to share because, you know, I'm a sock addict. This is what I was working on before I started that test knit. So these are the cutest pair of socks that I have ever knit. Let me just double check. Okay, yes. So this yarn is from Malia Made It, and it is self-striping and this gorgeous neon speckled rainbow pattern. And it is, I believe the colorway is called Acid Rainbow. And I am right to the point where I think I need to knit in my piece of scrap yarn so I can know where to put my afterthought heels in. I'm absolutely loving these. Again, self-striping yarn just kind of knits itself, and I really feel that way with this yarn. I'm just always ready to get to the next section, and you know, even though I know how they're all going to play together now, it's just always fun to see it grow and, you know, add that next section of yarn onto it. I'm not entirely sure what color I want to use for the heels. I may just come back in with the same yarn and put in a heel, or I may find a contrast color. Have my eye on 1 or 2 minis in my little box over there that might work for that. But otherwise, again, plain old vanilla sock, 72 stitches, toe up, 2 at a time. This is pretty much my favorite way to knit socks now, and my sock bin overfloweth, but that's a first world problem, I think. So anyway, yes. So I'm like, how many pairs of socks can I really knit for myself this year? So that's why Naomi got a pair of socks. I didn't do some Christmas sock knitting last year, and I'm kind of thinking maybe I should implement a 1 pair for me, 1 pair for somebody else on the needles, you know, because you always need socks to knit. That might be a good way for me to work through some of my stash and to spread the love a little bit. I don't want to say ease the guilt because I don't really feel guilty about doing something that I love and enjoy. But yeah, I want to spread the love a little more. So I might need to start doing that. So anyway, yes, these are Acid Rainbow by Malia made it. And I'm unsure if I'm doing shorties or long socks on this. So we'll see. I'm kind of saving that decision-making process for once I'm done with my Seaglass tee. So it looks like the next thing I have here in my pile is a blast from the past. This is the Battenberg blanket that I started working on for my nephew, who is about to turn 1 in a few weeks. So, yeah, when I got that message about a month ago, I was like, you know what? I think it's time for me to break this baby blanket out and try to get some progress done on it. Try to get it done by his birthday party, which is in a few weeks. So this is pretty close to half of the blanket. I just kind of went on a kick for about a week and started making the white squares and joining them. And I was doing really, really, really good. And then I just completely lost steam on it again. So my thinking is if I can complete kind of this first half rectangle, what I might just do is once I have like this big panel piece done, I may just then like crochet a border around until it's as big as I want it to be and then just call it done on this project. I love, love, love the Battenberg offset of the like plain white with the color squares. I think it's super adorable and really pretty and visually pleasing to look at. However, I don't think I'm going to get the whole thing done by his birthday. My other option is just to keep working on it throughout the year and try to get it done for this Christmas. I have all of the colored squares that I needed done. I just feel really bad. At the same time, I mean, Aunt Zoe buys the good birthday presents and Christmas presents as well as gives the hand knits. So it's not like I'm not going to give him anything if I don't finish this in time. It's just kind of one of those things that's like sitting on my shelf and giving me the stank eye every time I don't work on it and like start a new test knit instead. Anyway, this is a square update. I'm pretty sure last time I only had about like this much done and I've basically doubled what I had done. So it's possible. I just really need to find the motivation for it again. On the one hand, I really want to like finish this and have the blanket that I envisioned for him at the same time. So we'll see, we'll see. I have a feeling I'm going to keep working on it. Stay tuned. Maybe next month I will have a whole blanket finished. Maybe next month I will only have this part finished. Who knows? We'll see. I don't know if I mentioned though, this is the Battenberg blanket by Sandra Paul of the Cherry Heart podcast. It is a free pattern and she has some really good video tutorial links because these are all join as you go crochet squares. So I crocheted all of the color squares first, and then once you make one of the white squares, she very cleverly has you like crochet them together with the colored squares. So there's no seaming to do for this blanket, which I really, really appreciate. And I have been trying to stay on track of keeping my ends woven in as well. So that's one less thing to do whenever the end comes. So I suppose that leads us to spinning, and I don't remember if I mentioned the last time I recorded because it had just gotten here. Naomi once again influenced me. She peer pressured me into getting an electric Eel Wheel 6 as well. Thankfully, once they made it to the US, the makers had plenty to offer for those people who didn't do the Kickstarter. So yeah, I just bought it the day that it became available. I am pretty much in love with my e-wheel as far as spinning singles goes. The very first thing that I spun on it was this little test skein. This is some of the John Armin fiber that has been bouncing between me and Naomi for the past year or so in the Beautiful Ones colorway. It was just a little like 1 ounce bump or something that she had extra and gave to me when she came up here last year. So I just spun up 1 bobbin of this, and I wanted to try my hand at Navajo plying or chain plying, which is a way to get a 3-ply yarn and is generally utilized to avoid breaking up color repeats on like a long gradient. Because I have a gradient bump of fiber from Loop that I really want to spin up, and I'd like to keep the color progressions. I just really did not like chain plying or Navajo plying. It did not come natural to me. It doesn't look terrible, but there's definitely some places where the plies didn't come together correctly. Again, it was my first attempt, so I shouldn't judge myself too harshly. I think it came out okay. It's definitely going to take some more practice. The other thing is I was plying it on the e-wheel, and I think I prefer plying on my traditional wheel, on my Shacked Ladybug, better. Which is fine. I mean, it's just kind of funny because Naomi was like, oh, I'm going to get the e-wheel for plying on more than anything. And I was like, that's not a bad idea. What I've found since is that I really enjoy spinning my singles on my e-wheel and then plying on my traditional wheel, as well as I enjoy doing the singles short forward worsted on my e-wheel, but anything kind of woolen spun or that needs a little fluff, more fluff and air, I'm really still enjoying more so on my traditional wheel. So anyway, I did this. I had started the singles for this sock spin, I think the last time that I spoke with you guys. So I had started the first single on my Ladybug. And I wanted a very thin, you know, like traditional sock weight 3-ply yarn. This is from a braid from Wound Up Fiber Arts. It's called, I think the colorway is called Nest Egg. It is so gorgeous. It's just a beautiful blend of like teals and golds and blues and like aquas and seafoam. So yes, so back to spinning. I was spinning on my Ladybug, and I was spinning so thin that I kept getting breakages on this first single. I lost almost a good 10 grams of fiber to so much breakage on that first single. And then my e-wheel came in, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try spinning my other 2 singles on the e-wheel and see how that goes. And no problems whatsoever, no problems. That thing wants to spin like lace weight yarn, if not finer, especially on something super slippery and super soft like the Superwash Nylon blend. So yeah, so my other 2 bobbins came out perfectly, and then I did ply this together on the Ladybug, and I'm really pleased with how it came out overall. I did have like 3 or 4 breaks when I was plying things together, so I just kind of, I don't know if I do it the right way. I just kind of tie knots together, and I figure once I'm knitting with this, I can manipulate the yarn to join back together however I want. So this is probably going to be my next sock cast on. It's just so pretty. It's so pretty. I can't wait to knit this up and see how it looks. So I'm thinking my Eel Wheel is probably pretty much always going to have a sock spin going on with it, and then my traditional wheel will be like plying and doing any kind of woolen spinning that I have in mind. Speaking of, part of what made me make that decision was, I don't remember what I finished first or last. I spun up another little sample skein. So this is from some Rambouillet that my mom brought back from her trip out west last summer, from Mountain Meadow Farms. It's 100% Rambouillet, grown in the US. And Mom brought me and Naomi each a pound of fiber back. And I've talked for a long time about how I want to make my like dream all over cabled sweater. So I've taken it one step further now, and I'm like, I am going to spin the yarn for my all over cabled sweater. Cables work best with 3-ply yarns because they are the roundest and they are going to give you like the most defined cable shape. So I started on the Eel Wheel because I was kind of like, I want to spin everything on that right now. So when I finally sat down to spin this sample, I was kind of in the back of my mind thinking I wanted to do more of a woolen spun, and it just wasn't coming naturally on the Eel Wheel. And I think it's just going to be something that I will enjoy spinning more on my Ladybug, because the Rambouillet is super bouncy and very like squishy and not super slippery either. So it's got some grip to it. I don't know. It spoke to me, and it says that it wants to be spun on the Ladybug, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with this sweater spin taking me like through the rest of the year. I'm in no great hurry for this. I kind of want it to be, I'm not going to say perfect, but I want it to be something that I'm really proud of and that is going to be around for a long time. So I'm not displeased with this little sample skein at all. I haven't even knit it up yet, but I think I was going for about a worsted weight yarn because I decided I'm going to knit the Bronwyn sweater from Brooklyn Tweed out of this, and that calls for a worsted weight. And I think somehow I was spinning lighter than a worsted weight. This is a 3-ply and it still came out lighter than a worsted weight. So like my default is when I'm on the Eel Wheel is just to go like as thin as possible. And again, it just kind of wants to spin that way. So it was really a struggle to like make myself spin thicker on it. But on the Ladybug, I did not have any problems with that. So that is what this is going to be. I should probably still knit up a sample and kind of see where we're at with this. But yeah, I did go ahead and just order a 2nd pound of Rambouillet from Mountain Meadow wool, just to be sure I was going to have enough for the yardage that I'm looking for at a worsted weight yarn. So my current spin is the BFL Silk, just in a natural colorway. This is from Wound Up Fiber Arts. Okay, it's 85 BFL 15% silk. And this is my first time spinning BFL, and I'm doing it on the Eel Wheel. So I don't even think you can really tell like how fine those singles are, but they are almost like finer than lace weight. I forgot to mention, I got over 500 yards on this skein of yarn. That's like crazy amount of yardage. It's a true like light fingering weight yarn. I think I normally get somewhere around like 430, 440 yards when I do a sock spin, like at this thin. So I'm anticipating, again, getting somewhere close to 500 yards with this. I finished the first single, the second one's on my wheel, and then this is the third half of that. I'm going to do another 3-ply since BFL makes for good sock yarn and silk is a good strengthener for sock yarn. So I want more non-superwash sock yarns in my life as well. So that is what this is going to wind up being. I really love the natural shade here. It's kind of like a silvery gray, but I kind of am tempted to dye it once I'm done spinning it. I've not dyed anything post spinning it into yarn, so we'll see where that goes. I may just leave it. I don't know. I just know with the like natural gray underneath, it's going to give a really rich and deep depth of shade, something beautiful. So, but as far as spinning the BFL, this is one of the breeds that I am considering as part of my breed study for this year, which I am ridiculously far behind on, but that's okay. This is just for my own personal pleasure and learning experience. The BFL has a very long staple length. That's part of what makes it a good sock yarn. And so that means that like my draft is, that's crazy long. Like it's a good like 4 inches. So, you know, you're able to draft these really long pieces as you're spinning. The Eel Wheel wants to spin super thin, so it's kind of spinning itself, and I'm really enjoying this process here. So now, like, since I'm enjoying this so much, like BFL is definitely going up higher on my list of breeds that I will look for in the future. It's been a good experience, even though I'm only like 3 or 4 breeds in, to know like I really enjoyed BFL, and it's not something that I would have necessarily sought out before I had done this. But now I know that I want to spin more of this in the future because I'm enjoying it so much. And it's like, it's just nice to have as a foil to something like the Rambouillet, which is very, very springy and is a lot bouncier and has a shorter staple length. It's closer to Merino, and Corriedale, which is another like cousin to Merino, if you will, but it's kind of somewhere in the middle. It kind of has some characteristics of BFL, but also of Merino. So yeah, it's just been a really interesting journey. I know some people will make some kind of project that uses all of those breeds in one place, so I guess so they can have something to show for their efforts, but I'm not really worried about that. I'm just kind of going with the flow and seeing where it takes me. So that about does it for all of the making. I had a request for some custom minis, so I dyed up some extras as well as some sock sets, and they will be going in the shop this week. Again, advent calendars, I'm going to start listing them in June. I'll make sure to make an announcement on Instagram before I actually post them in the shop in case anybody needs, you know, a few extra days to prepare. But those will be coming soon. Jason and I are fully vaccinated. We have been doing some traveling back and forth the state the last few weeks to see friends and family. We got to meet our new niece, Clara. She is super adorable. And saw some friends for their birthdays, saw my parents down at the beach. The pink supermoon was rising, and that was really beautiful. I'll put some footage of all of this at the end. And yeah, other than that, it's just been a lot of like yard work and housework and getting the shop things taken care of. Did my taxes. I don't know, life's pretty boring around here. Anyway, I'm just rambling now, so I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, don't forget to thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. I really love having you guys here with me. I think I am like close to hitting 500 subscribers. So if we hit 500 subscribers between now and the next video, number one, I promise I'll record sooner than a month. But number two, I will do another giveaway. I'm not sure what I'm going to give away yet. I would love to share some yarn with y'all. So anyway, yes, I will see you again in a few weeks. I hope that you are knitting something beautiful and enjoying it, and I will see you again soon. Bye.